Do you feel the GOP might die out and the Dems will shift right while a newer left party forms? I was discussing this with a coworker with the current trajectory. Yeah, I mean, there's currently a war inside of the Democratic Party chat, between like the Bernie progressive wing and like the more moderate wing, the more centrist conservative wing of the party. You can look at like your Gavin Newsom's. Basically, if you want to get a good idea of which people in Congress right now are part of like the conservative Democratic wing, just look at every Democratic name that voted for that crypto bill. Okay, every single one of them. Cory Booker did it. Padilla did it, or Padilla, however you pronounce his name. There's like a list of 16 Democrats. And so one of the things you guys need to understand is that what is currently being geared up, Padilla, gotcha. I figured it was that, but you never know. Sometimes it's not. I know this is off topic, but is it normal to want to scream, "That's my purse," and kick Mark Cuban every time he posts on Blue Sky? Yeah, I mean, like, that's the other thing, right? Like, Mark Cuban is like a Democratic surrogate on television, and like he's like a rich asshole, all I want to put out there, folks, is that there are a number of Democrats that are moving more conservative, and a lot of this is likely due to the fact that they are in the pocket of a lot of big money donors. And essentially what is happening is the left wing of the party is going around. They're actually showing up at town halls. They're actually getting attention. They're actually getting out there, talking with people, and they're actually getting a response from everyday working people in this country. And that is pissing off centrist Dems, And that's kind of the problem here. Like, these two factions want to fight. They want to fight over the future of the Democratic Party. And it's going to be a knockdown, drag-out fight. The elements that torpedoed Bernie Sanders, they're not going anywhere. They're still here. And they are going to do everything in their power to make the Democrats as corporate friendly as they can. And there are some people who recognize right now that that is not what this country needs, in fact. And that's why I constantly ask and plead for you guys to go out. If you're comfortable like doing your calls, you're comfortable leaving your public comments on proposed regulation changes, okay? Go to your local Democratic meetings, okay? You can join our Discord, reach out to Dragonfly to figure out when and where those are, okay? But go to your local Democratic meetings, because we need more people inside the party willing to fight this fight, because it's an internal fight, guys. You might be outside the party. A lot of those party folks, they don't give a shit what people outside the party think, okay? So you got to get in that room. You got to join. You got to get in there. And, if you want to organize outside the Democratic Party, DSA is a great vehicle for that as well. So join DSA, join the Democratic Party, and get involved on a local level in those two ways, right? But what is essentially happening, and what I believe is going to happen as a result of this particular budget bill, if it passes, I think that it will basically be the end of the Republican Party. I frankly, like, Trump just doesn't have the juice. Like, he's old. His brain's like melting out of his ears at this point. He's talking about the word groceries like he just invented it yesterday. And he's proud that people are using the term groceries now. Like, we just rediscovered it because he said it one time. It's weird. He's gone, man. Like, he's not even making the decisions in the room. And so what ends up happening here is, in my opinion, once Trump is gone, there is no successor to Donald Trump. There are going to be people who want to succeed. Succeed? No, succeed. Donald Trump. They want to take his place. However, none of these Republican ghouls have the juice. They don't have the charisma. They don't have the support. You know, like they're wet paper bags. And so when we're looking at what happens after Trump is gone, what happens when this budget bill crushes millions of people and mobilizes them into action, what happens when workers take up a new political working class mantle? Well, I think the Republican Party just kind of implodes. And I think that leaves the Democratic Party as being the only real game in town. Kind of like what happened after Rishi Sunak got ousted in the UK. You know, their Conservative Party collapsed. And what ended up happening is that Keir Starmer, waltzed in and essentially unopposed. And, well, they're basically just as bad as the Conservatives. Like they're pretty shit. And that's what will happen if the progressive wing of the Democratic Party does not win. Okay? Yeah, the Republican, or not Republican, the Conservative coalition in Australia is also in the process of falling apart, right? And so one of the things we need to recognize here is that we need to put our focus in part, not just on opposing Trump, but also on winning this internal schism. The progressive wing isn't going to win. I'm not with that attitude. Why don't you do something about it instead of posting in my chat about it? Like, if you're going to post in my chat, they're not going to win. You better be doing everything in your power to make sure that they do win. Like, if you're going to have an opinion like that, you better be doing something about it. Which party do you think is more fractured and likely to break apart? Republicans. Yes, there are people who want to secede. It's true. I think we have reached escape dumb velocity. No turning back. I mean, that's kind of true. Yeah. Devil's advocate, collaborationist Dems and the GOP have the vast majority of the media. I don't know how you break that, because they just lie and people believe it no matter what. How do you break that? I mean, frankly, how you break that is the immense amount of suffering that is coming down the pipeline. Like, the issue here is that there is a complete inability on the part of centrist Dems and on the part of the Republican Party at large to adequately fix the problems that are coming down the pipeline. None of the policy positions of centrist Dems are sufficient. It's why you got a relatively kind of sort of progressive guy like Tim Walz talking about Medicare for all. It's why you got these people who generally under normal circumstances wouldn't be talking about these progressive political positions, talking about them as they do speaking tours of the country, right? And so part of the issue here is that we are in for a world of hurt. And that is going to radicalize people. I do not care where you are on the political spectrum. I do not care what your information sources are. When you start getting fucked the way we are going to get fucked, that radicalizes you. Okay? So we're gonna do our best, but we have to recognize here that when we talk about this, that's why I constantly tell you guys we need to be ready, because there are a lot of people who are going to be coming in with a lot of questions about why are things like this? And we have to understand it. But Jack, I don't want to get fucked. I mean, I don't either, but the issue there is that we have to some degree that getting fucked is kind of baked in. At the very least, what's happening right now with the tariff effects on the economy, the supply chain bottlenecks, etc., that's already baked in. That's already coming down the pipeline, and it's already going to hit us pretty badly. There's that There's like that viral image of like the Target employee putting like a, you know, more than doubling of the price of like a cable, like a USB cable, from like $10 to like $20. You know, like it's, you know, that's already happening because of those tariffs. There's not really undoing that. And do people want easy answers and narratives? Yes. That's why we have to be prepared with relatively straightforward answers to their questions. Yeah, $9.99 to $17.99. Yeah. So we need to be ready. We need to understand that there are a lot of people who are going to be in a lot of pain coming in here into our, not just in here, but like here in like our general spaces, looking for answers, and we have to be ready to give them those answers. Okay? And I mean, global warming will fuck us all in, you know, relatively short order, but like the economic effects of tariffs are going to hit us first. Hassan mentioned how older black voters have a loyalty to the Democratic Party based on what it delivered in the past. We have to work on moving the party left without treating the party like it's all full of shit, which turns off those voters. And yeah, I agree with that. You know, like the issue that we have in front of us is that we need to recognize that there are a bunch of people out there who are loyal to the Democratic Party, who are those blue wave posters on the internet, you know? But like they're loyal to the idea of the Democratic Party, not necessarily to where the party centrists are. Does that make sense? Do you think we can use death panels against them? No. What are death panels? I'm assuming like a reference to like the, you know, Republican speculation that Obamacare would create death panels deciding who gets to live and die because that's communism or something. That was like a Republican idea, and it also never happened. Instead, we privatized those death panels, and now they, you know, are in our privatized healthcare system. People really feel it's currently dem or nothing. Well, yeah, it is currently dem or nothing. Yes. Like the issue is there is no third option here. There's no viable third option at this particular point in time. And so like to an extent they're right. Like the only source of support for trans people in this country is the Democratic Party. But again, I think that like if your litmus test in the Democratic Party is supports trans people, that automatically pushes you to the left, to the Bernie Sanders wing. You know, like that's just like, you know, you've got centrist Dems saying that we need to throw, you know, trans people under the bus. Oh, it's center Dems or nothing. Don't try to change the system. Well, we need to change the system if we want to protect trans people. So like anyone saying like don't change the system to protect trans people, that's silly. Yeah, and that's kind of where I was going with this, Arachnomancy. Like abundance liberalism is the conservative wing of the Democratic Party. And we need to recognize that the people championing abundance liberalism are just the neolibs. They are just, hey, let's go back to Reagan. Everybody, you remember Ronald Reagan? Let's do Ronald Reagan. Except with, you know, in blue this time. So, like, understand where the fight is right now and where I think the relevant fight is going to be. And we need to be doing everything we can to stop Donald Trump, but we also need to be doing everything we can that is within our power, you know, to get inside of the Democratic Party and influence the outcome of this internal power struggle. Okay? That's kind of my general position here. So I hope you'll go and do that. If you're progressive, if you give a shit about trans people, if you give a shit about like, hey, making sure everyone gets healthcare, if you give a shit about these things, get involved in your local Democratic Party because it starts at the bottom and we need to make sure we have enough people rising through the ranks because guess what? And I've said it before, I'm going to say it again. 90% of you being able to accrue power in the Democratic Party, and frankly, in most groups, is just showing the fuck up. just go to the goddamn meetings, and you've already done 90% of the work just by physically going, okay? Do it. There's a decent chance, by the way, that when you show up, they'll be like, a young person, please take some of our official responsibility. Please. Hey, do you want to be a delegate? Hey, do you want to like be the treasurer? We'll just give you responsibility. We'll shower it on you. And you want to know something? You can fucking write that on your resume too. Okay? So like, I don't know, build your resume. Go show up at these meetings. Do stuff. Participate. And insert better, more progressive, leftist policy talking points into your local party. Hell, you can even talk about straight up socialist reforms that you want to introduce on the local level. Talk about bringing back postal banking. Talk about, a program to foster democratic worker co-ops in your community. You can do a lot of cool shit on a local level. And you want to know something? Most of the people that go to your local democratic meetings will support that, because generally they're just other people in your community that want to make things better. And you can work with that. So, get to work. Do the things.
Riverboat Jack is coming to town. All the viewers gather round. Twitch and YouTube and swishy streams. All that content is bursting the scenes. Politics, being, flame more. Your sense of fashion you'll adore. So grab your stuff